All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are going to be discussing the biggest breaking news story of the week in college football. Obviously, a lot of games going down this Saturday that are going to be highly notable, but right now this is the story that's the discussion in CFB across the country, and that's that UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka is transferring despite the Rebels being a perennial CFB contender in the group of five. 3-0 start for the Rebs. He's, been pretty good. 253 rushing yards so far this year. He had, over 100 plus against Kansas in that upset victory. He's done pretty well as a passer as well with over 318 yards and 6 touchdowns. This is obviously a team that runs the football a lot, so the completion rating, about 43%, not many yards. Nonetheless, this is a quarterback who's done a lot to help this team get to this point, and we're still in September, and he is opting out for reasons that have to do with NIL. We're going to go ahead and quote some articles here where, Matthew Sluka's agent, Marcus Cromartie, he said that the UNLV did not come through on a verbal offer of $100,000 from an assistant coach. And you look at the UNLV, collective, Rob Sine, the leader of that group out there in Vegas, he said that, the agents first made contact with the collective in late August to try to discuss future opportunities to work together. But it doesn't appear that that's going to be happening anytime soon, Nick, because we have a big issue apparently where Sine says he wasn't aware of any promises to pay Sluka $100,000 and that he did not reach out to the collective about missing payments one bit. He recently said a couple days ago to Barry Odom, the head coach at UNLV, about this issue, and he decided to practice on Monday, didn't on Tuesday, and here we are on Wednesday with him deciding to redshirt and enter the transfer portal. When I first saw Jaden Rashada, a few months ago, he said he was going to be suing Arizona State for some missing payments. I went, well, this is probably a handshake deal. And I said the same thing about this. I was like, kids need to stop doing these handshake deals of agreements. And what do you know? Pete Thamel shortly after tweets that they had a verbal agreement. And I was like, yep, there you go. I mean, this is end of discussion. And I'm so confident in saying that these are handshake deals, Nick, with, zero information told to me one bit. Because if there was an actual contract in place, there would not be an issue one bit. You don't see this in the NFL where players set out because the check didn't clear. Because that's just not how it works. They have legitimate business, legitimate contracts in place. And so that's why I'm so confident in saying that these are handshake deals without any prior information. Because if that was the case, he would be able to continue playing football. The lawyers would handle it. He would get paid. And he can continue to play for this football team and win games. And that's not the case. And that seems to be what we have here is another handshake deal gone wrong, or at least I guess the second one to really think of, because Jaden Rashada is the only other guy I've heard of this potentially where false promises were made and not delivered. Very interesting situation here, Nick. A lot of people are blaming the school. A lot of people are blaming the quarterback. The agent, of course, they claim UNLV made no attempt to finalize a deal. The guy from the collective is saying, well, we didn't even know this deal was in place. So it looks like an assistant coach made some false promises. He was not in position to make those. So should the agent and the player be aware of that? Or who do you think this is on? Do you think that the Rebels are trying to just do bad business, or they just have someone talking out of line?
This is a bombshell when it dropped late last night that this was going to be happening when Sluka tweeted out that he would no longer play the rest of the season. This is the first example, at least publicly, of a player opting out and using a red shirt to transfer in season due to NIL issues and things of that nature. I mean, I was stunned when I read this story this morning. I could not believe this was developing as it was. But at the same time, I certainly could believe it because it was just a matter of time before this happened. Sluka called their bluff, right? He said, they said, we're not going to pay you. He said, I'm not going to play. And that's what ended up happening. They did not assume that this was going to happen. This is a bad deal across the board, a bad handshake deal. And this is a complete mess to unpack. I think UNLV is at issue here. I think, the players at issue here. I think the NCAA is certainly at issue here. If I'm at the NCAA headquarters right now, 4-alarm fire alarms should be going off inside that office because this is a complete and unmitigated potential disaster unfolding as this could get really out of hand very quickly. This is sets a bad precedent for the NCAA, sets a bad precedent for college football players, and a bad precedent overall. I think all parties are at fault here. I have a lot of blame for the quarterback. I have a lot of blame for the program. I have a lot of blame for the NIL rules or the lack thereof rules that the NCAA has done as they've kind of just gone into this blindly without really thinking at all. This is a complete mess, a lot to unpack here, and it's certainly something that has to continue to be figured out because this is crazy, and it's only going to get more insane from here because more and more players, they might see this and start opting out themselves as well. This could really get out of hand for the NCAA.
The only formal offer made from the school, according to Sluka's agent Cromartie, was an offer of $3,000 a month for 4 months. The only money he ever received was $3,000 for moving expenses when he transferred in from Hollycross, where he spent a couple of seasons there and ended up graduating from that school. So you certainly. It's a very interesting point here because you talk about the NCAA with their rules, and I'm not, a lawyer. I'm not deep into the gritty, and neither are you. But it seems that the biggest problem is that the schools cannot directly pay players, and they can't, make them actual employees. Which I think that's great. They shouldn't be. They're not employees. They're still student athletes at the end of the day. NIL was designed for you to do advertisements on TV, autograph sessions, football camps, stuff like that, Nick. None of this. And it certainly has gotten out of hand to this. And I had Quint Kisnick from ESPN on the podcast many months ago, and we talked about this, and he agreed with my stance that it's not even close to what it was designed for. And, the system for paying college athletes is certainly one that's really in flux. And a lot of people talk about collectives across the country taking care of business. And it's, there's certainly plenty of schools that are doing legitimate business, and they're not doing this behind people's backs. And again, this is only the second player I've heard of that's had an issue like this. I think that the biggest fault certainly does have to lie with the player, Nick, because you shouldn't, it's kind of it's a life lesson that you shouldn't be making deals without a contract in place. And I think a lot of people are trying to compare this to a job, and they're saying, I would opt out too. If you're not getting paid for your job, you would quit. And college football is not a job, Nick. This is an opportunity. I don't think that's a debate. That is a pure fact. This is an opportunity. You're pretty much here for free playing football, with an opportunity to go pro and, of course, get an education, make relationships across the country at your specific school, friends. All that, right? This is not the NFL. This is not a job. This is an opportunity. So at the end of the day, it's possible that he was offered money, which no one's even proven that this was said anyways by the assistant coach from UNLV, Nick. So I really think there's a lot of pointing fingers when it comes to this.
This is an extreme he said, she said situation. I agree with a lot of points you said there. The fact that we don't have anything in writing makes this a murkier and tough situation, which first off, the fact that, the player did not get anything in writing, I think is bad advisement from, potentially either this agent, lawyers, family, whoever. They did not advise him well by not getting this in writing, because having no legal, document of any sort, anything written down, was a very big misstep, and that's really led us to the problem we're at now. If there was even an offer in the first place, we don't know if there was an offer in the first place. It makes me feel like there might not have been an offer. I feel like a program like UNLV could have just paid the $100,000 and settled this. Instead, they bluffed, Sluka bluffed, and he ended up being the one that walked away at the end of the day and said, I'll take my talent somewhere else. I'm still an incredibly talented player who had a really great career at Holy Cross and is having a phenomenal start to his season. UNLV, this is a team that could be making the college football playoff. They're 3-0. They've beaten 2 Power 4 teams in pretty impressive fashion, including a Kansas team that you and I were both very high on. The schedule is right out there in front of them. Sluka's been playing really solid on the ground, and now he opts out, sends this team into an absolute tizzy a couple of days before a game, and sends a lot of different moving pieces here. Barry Odom is, saying he had no part of this. He's saying he had no part of a deal. The offensive coordinator, we've not heard anything out of him. He needs to come out and say something. The fact that he's not even said anything yet continues to be even more suspicious. There are so many holes in this problem. I agree with you. These are athletes. These are college athletes. NIL wasn't designed to be paying players directly, be shoveling money into players directly. It was supposed to be, you can go out and get an ad revenue deal. You can go out and do a deal with Arby's or McDonald's or Chick-fil-A. You can go out and do a deal with your local car dealership near the campus. That was what NIL was supposed to be designed for. The idea that you could just pay a player $100,000 to come transfer to your school is ludicrous in my opinion, and that is sort of the Pandora's box that we opened when the NCAA said, hey, let's start doing this, because they didn't think it out. They didn't draw up any bylaws. They didn't do anything, because at the end of the day, if they were going to start having players be legit employees and contracted employees, the NCAA would be useless and it would be abolished, and they'd lose all the power that they've had since the dawn of time, where they were able to rule this college football, rule college athletics, and do whatever they wanted. This has gotten totally out of hand, and this was the first example. I think this is going to continue to happen. We've seen other players begin to opt out now and prepare to transfer, whether or not that's NIL related or transfer portal related. Hard to tell right now. Everything is happening so fast. But what's going to stop players from telling schools, hey, I need $1 million to transfer here, and schools that are desperate for talent, schools that are smaller schools going, okay, we'll pay you the $1 million, and we're not going to write an agreement, be a handshake deal, and then the schools having no intention of paying the players, and the player just ends up opting out after 3 games when they realize they got a raw deal. That could certainly happen. These schools need to find a way to compete with the top schools that have the unlimited resources, have the money they can shovel into it, like your Alabamas, your Georgias, your Michigans, your USCs, schools like that. This is a complete unmitigated disaster, in my opinion, and it's really a bad look on all the parties involved as this continues to unfold. I don't really understand what direction this is going to go. It seems like the story still has a lot to tell, but this is a mess for the NCAA, a mess for UNLV, and a mess for the quarterback. This is a big, big issue.
And now, since people want to use this again, the example of, well, if you weren't getting paid to do your job, you would stop going too. And I'll certainly, the rebuttal is very simple. Anytime anyone has ever gotten a job offer, they don't just say start on Monday and you show up. You do an onboarding process. You may link your direct deposit or elect how you're going to get paid. You do all that nonsense, Nick, when it comes to filling out every detail about your life so they know exactly who you are and how these things can be sorted out. And it doesn't seem like this was a part of the process at all. It sounds like they were just told something like, right, cool. And they showed up to school and they didn't give any detail on where to send money, what's the payment plan, this and that. They didn't have any of that in place, it doesn't appear. Bob Sluka, Matthew's father, of course, he's very defensive on this. So I can certainly imagine. He says that the expenses for Sluka to live there aren't even being covered. That's certainly something that'll be interesting to find out as well. And he said that they left there after a recruiting visit many months ago, that they were going to get a certain dollar amount in terms of NIL. And he says that he later received more than 25 NIL offers from other schools, including Big Ten and SEC teams. There were 4 or 5 times the amount of money they were willing to take from UNLV. Show us the offers, Nick, because I really just do not believe that one bit. Maybe they did. I don't think that's true. Obviously, a lot of this will be sorted out, and we'll get to the facts eventually, I would hope. But what are your final thoughts on that quote right there, and of course the NIL, before we move to the personal opinions on this whole thing?
When you look at it, where are the offers? I agree. I want to see the offers, and I also agree that you just wouldn't show up to a job without a contract, without an agreement in place. You have to have that physical agreement, written down agreement, either legally binding agreement, whatever. Having just an agreement behind the back, a handshake deal with the offensive coordinator, who now has gone radio silent. This was a disaster waiting to happen. I think this is something that we're going to see at other different schools and could be a big issue. If you remember, there was a lot of rumors that Talia Tagovailoa, the brother of Tua Tagovailoa, was getting $1 million offers from unnamed SEC schools, which people speculate may have been Florida or Auburn. But we had no concrete proof that those offers came from SEC schools. Those offers came from those 2 potential programs. They were just rumors. It was just rumors that he was offered $1 million. I don't know if that actually happened. That may well happen. It's a complete new dawn, right? This is an information age where things are just flying around. There's a lack of concrete proof and evidence of different offers and different rumors. It's just a complete mess. And again, like I said earlier in the episode, the NCAA did not think this through. They had 100 years to think through how they were going to pay players, and they've done this completely wrong. I don't think they were ready for the way they kicked this off. They weren't ready for the Supreme Court or Congress to get involved and make this happen. Whatever sort of triggered NIL, the NCAA was not ready for it. They've mishandled this grossly, in my opinion, and this is going to continue to be an issue. Things are going terribly wrong right now with the way that this is being done.
Yeah, the Talia thing is a good example, because anybody could start a rumor saying that he's being offered money by better schools, and Maryland panics and goes, oh, we need to get this finalized. We need to boost our offer. That stuff happens, Nick. That's real world, example of that stuff happening, where something that's a pure lie can be used to your benefit. I think that could be something that's potentially maybe being involved here on either side. So enough for that for the NIL. That's enough thoughts covered. In terms of, morally, how do we feel about a player basically quitting on his team, Nick? This is interesting because, it's one thing to be promised some money, but at the same time, a lot of people have you as the favorite for the college football playoff at UNLV. I don't think players should ever quit. I think it's pretty, discriminatory towards the game. I think it's incredibly disgusting that after a couple of games of everything that's in front of you, because your teammates have put in the hard work as well, your coaches have invested the time with you. So for you to just quit, it just doesn't seem great. It doesn't sit right with me one bit. Obviously, if there's a contract in place, clearly there isn't, then you'd still be able to play football and worry about that later. It's just ridiculous, because I think you should go out here. You still have a chance to do a lot. You can continue to boost your draft stock, maybe earn more offers. I don't know in terms of eligibility if he had another year. I know he does now because he's redshirting, but the NCAA gives eligibility to everybody, it seems. So if morally lies quitting on your team, it's exactly what that is here, and it's not great for you to make a selfish decision because you weren't being paid. It seems kind of laughable to think that the school would not be paying for your bills, and obviously we'll see if that ends up being true. But I don't like that you're just going to opt out on your team because of something that's happening behind the scenes. That has nothing to do with your teammates, quitting on your teammates. It wouldn't sit right with me, Nick. I would be very upset even if it's true that you did wrong. That's not my business. It has nothing to do with me, but we're a teammate here. I've put in the work with you all summer. We're here winning football games with a great opportunity in front of us, and you're just going to walk away for a couple of bucks.
Absolutely disgusting behavior. I mean, that's exactly what it is. There was a lot of response on social media today from players at UNLV. The captain, one of the wide receivers, tweeted that they were excited for the backups, tweeting praise for the backup that is now being thrust into the starting position at UNLV, tweeting that they were excited to play with him. And that's exactly what it is. It's disgusting. You quit on your team in the middle of the season. I think it's unforgivable behavior, and it's just pathetic. You quit on your team. This is a team that's 3-0 in the hunt for the college football playoff, a team that you could go on to bigger things. If you go on and go make the college football playoff and win a game, make some noise, there will be a lot of attention to you. Your profile will certainly rise. You will get a lot of attention if you're the quarterback leading that team. There are potential to open up new NIL deals with that in the Las Vegas area. If you have a good team in the city of Las Vegas, there will be deals that come with that. The city loves their stars. They love the excitement that comes with sports. If UNLV is making a deep playoff run, that's huge for the city. That's huge for the university. This is just a disgusting move, in my opinion, by Sluka. He's going to get a lot of the brunt of my disapproval currently in this situation. I think in the future, this may be something where we look back on it and say that this was a guy that did something that was change, that he forced change that needed to happen, and something that could look good, in 5-10 years from now. But right now, this looks terrible on him. He quit on his team in the middle of the season, just up sticks and said, I'm done playing because I didn't get paid. I think about all the players on that roster that had no NIL offers, all the guys that are just playing because they love college football. They're just playing because they grinded into high school and worked hard to hone their craft to get recruited by a Division I college football program, a big names college. This isn't just some small school. UNLV, they're a historic program. I know they haven't had much success in the last 10, 20, 30 years or so, but this is a huge school in the state of Nevada, in Las Vegas. And these guys worked their butts off their entire life. They played all through high school and played at some smaller schools to transfer here. They don't have NIL offers. Your starting quarterback just goes, hey, I'm leaving on a random Tuesday because I want to preserve my red shirt so I can get paid maybe $250,000 by some team in the Big Ten next year. Disgusting behavior. I think it's absolutely unacceptable. We said, in an episode we did recently where we talked about Notre Dame, where they had a player opt out in their secondary. We said it was disgusting behavior that he did that, and it still is here. This is just one that's getting nationally highlighted because of the NIL implications. I thought it was wrong when De'Ara King opted out at Houston in 2019, which was the first real example of that after a couple of games in that season. Quitting on your team is never acceptable in a team sport like this, especially at a college level where things really, for the lack of better words, is an amateur thing, right? They're playing college sports. They're student athletes. They're still students. They're not professional athletes. You're doing this for the love of the game. You're playing because you're passionate about it, because you're an athlete. You have talent, God-given talent to go out there and play a sport. And quitting on your team, I think, is unacceptable. Just really rubbed me the wrong way, and I was disappointed that this had come. I figured at some point with all these backdoor deals, handshake deals that have nothing in writing, that something would come like this. It was a matter of time, and here we are, and it's just bitterly disappointing as a fan of college football.
Yeah, absolutely detrimental to the game. Like Nick Saban said a while ago, he put it best. It's not about, what can we do and accomplish on the field. It's about how much can you pay me. That's all that seems to matter. It seems to be the thing here for, a guy that's been in college for a number of different years. I understand you want to take advantage of every opportunity you have because you're not going to go pro. It's pretty simple. That's why a lot of players do this, and that's why I'm very hard on them because I think it's ridiculous. You're doing this because you're not very good. I understand it. No disrespect. I appreciate you put in the hard work. You've had a great season up until this point, but you're putting your future ahead of your teammates, your coaches, and it is what it is. It's certainly a personal opinion on how you feel regarding that, but I think when it comes to college football, you're here to leave a legacy. Do it on the field, play for the love of the game, and money should never trump love of the game, Nick. And again, you just never see something like this happening in the NFL because a check doesn't clear. You might see some guys holding out for contracts. That's completely different. That's not even the same. Those guys have every intention of at some point playing, and they want to suit up as soon as possible. Here, this guy doesn't want to suit up. Even if they could reach some type of agreement, it doesn't matter. He doesn't want to play until he's promised what he says that he was going to get. So, a very interesting thing here, Nick. Certainly a breaking story in college football. A lot to it in terms of what will be sorted out with this whole NIL thing. I don't think much is going to happen. That's how it is. This is how it goes in life, where you're promised things and it doesn't happen. So I don't think much is going to happen. Will rules change? I think the NCAA will certainly try to maybe put some more stipulations on it, but in terms of this situation, it's pretty much finished. I think Sluka is going to go transfer. He's going to get paid what he wants, and UNLV is going to continue their great season and march forward for that Group of 5 bid.
What I really hope happens here is that UNLV plugs in this backup who was a really solid player at Campbell last year. I hope they plug him in and then they just go out and they go end up running their way to the college football playoff and say, hey, we didn't need you. You abandoned us and we didn't need you. I think that would be a storybook ending. And I'm rooting for UNLV now. This is a team that I want to see succeed given what has happened today. I think this is a team that would be phenomenal to see them succeed given the circumstances that they have been thrust into in this situation. I said it earlier in the episode, there should be alarm bells absolutely blaring at the NCAA headquarters right now. President Charlie Baker needs to sit down with the legal team. They need to figure this out because this is a complete disaster that is going to continue to unravel as the days go on if they don't put a lid on this, and it's going to unravel next year and the year after that. They don't put a lid on this. They have to figure out a way to draft up some laws, draft up some bylaws, whatever they have to do. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know exactly what the resolution here is, but there needs to be one because this is going to open up Pandora's box and lead to a massive slippery slope for college football and kill the fabric of the game as we know it. This is a huge problem. It's already starting, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. Things need to change fast in college football, or this is going to keep happening, and it's going to be worse as things go on.
We do want to clarify that UNLV running back Michael Allen also announced he was transferring today. He says that he told the staff about this over a week ago, just odd timing, of course. He clarified it has nothing to do with NIL. He says he didn't receive any money from them. It has nothing to do with that. It's due to on-field opportunities, so definitely want to clear that in case he's tied up in the same thing. So it's been it for today's episode, Nick. As always, appreciate you joining me. Very interesting breaking story in college football today. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but I think this will just get pushed to the wayside, quite frankly.
Certainly something we had to sit down and talk about immediately. This is a huge issue in college football, a massive story that broke overnight, and a story that has ramifications that will go way beyond just UNLV and just this one player. A massive story, a lot to unfold here, and something that will continue to develop throughout the rest of the season.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.